If I asked you to imagine the origin of the most powerful criminal organization in history, you'd probably think of casinos, prohibition, or the gray streets of New York. You'd be wrong. Cosa Nostra wasn't born from the pursuit of easy money. It was born out of necessity. It was born from the smell of lemons. Before silk suits and expensive cigars, the mafia wore wool clothes and boots covered in dirt. In the mid-19th century, on the island of Sicily, a power vacuum gave birth to a monster, a ghost state that ruled through fear and silence. Today, we're going back to the beginning. We're entering the Conca d'Oro, the Golden Valley of Palermo, to uncover how farmers and field guards created a code of honor that would eventually bring the world to its knees. Welcome to the true origin of the Mafia. To understand the monster, we have to understand the cradle. It's 1860. Italy is unifying. But for the people of Sicily, this didn't mean freedom. It meant chaos. The feudal system had collapsed, and the new Italian government was weak, distant, and worst of all, absent. There was no reliable police force. If someone stole your land or killed your livestock, you didn't call the police. You handled it yourself. You were alone. And this is where the most unexpected element of this story comes in: the lemon. At the time, the British Navy discovered that citrus fruits could cure scurvy among sailors. Almost overnight, the Sicilian lemon became one of the most valuable agricultural products in Europe. 1 hectare of lemon groves in Palermo could generate 60 times more profit than any other crop. Sicily was sitting on a gold mine, and gold attracts thieves. Unorganized bandits began jumping over farm walls at night to steal the harvest. Wealthy landowners, desperate and without any real protection, needed security. They needed men who weren't afraid to use violence. So they hired the campieri. The campier was a field guard, usually a local man, respected and feared, someone who knew the land like the back of his hand. The deal was simple. The landowner paid, and the campier made sure not a single lemon was stolen. And at first, it worked. Where there was a campier, there was no theft. But it didn't take long for these guards to learn something fundamental about power. Whoever holds the weapon and has the nerve to use it makes the rules. The balance shifted. The protector slowly became the predator. If a farmer refused to hire a specific campier, strange things started to happen. Trees were cut down in the middle of the night. Cattle were found dead in the fields. Terrified, the farmer would rush back and agree to the deal. And just like that, the vandalism stopped. This was the birth of the protection racket. Classic extortion. They weren't selling protection from outsiders. They were selling protection from themselves. These groups of guards began to organize. They created oaths, rituals, and strict hierarchies to guarantee loyalty. They were no longer just guards. They were men of honor. To understand how real this was, we turn to the first documented mafia case in history. The year is 1872. The central figure is Dr. Gaspare Galati. Galati was a respected surgeon who inherited a large lemon plantation known as Fondo Riella. When he arrived, he discovered that the estate's administrator, a man named Carolo, was stealing from the operation. Galati, a man who trusted the law and common sense, did what seemed obvious. He fired Carolo. That decision nearly cost him his life. Soon after, the new administrator Galati hired was shot dead in broad daylight. threatening letters began to arrive. No one in the region was willing to take the job. Desperate, Dr. Galati went to the police. And that's when he realized how deep the problem really was. The police listened. They wrote everything down. And nothing happened. Files vanished. Witnesses suddenly couldn't remember anything. Carollo wasn't just a thief. He was part of a brotherhood, an invisible network linking criminals, corrupt police officers, and judges. Galati understood he wasn't fighting one man. He was fighting an entire system. To stay alive, he fled Sicily. His testimony would later become the first major report describing what the world would come to know as Cosa Nostra. So how did men like Carollo operate with total impunity? Two concepts made it possible: cosca and omerta. Cosca comes from the artichoke plant. One leaf on its own is weak, but many leaves together protect the heart. That's how the Mafia family worked. And then there's omerta, the law of silence. This wasn't just about refusing to talk to the police. It was a way of life. A man of honor handled his own problems. Turning to the state was seen as weakness. In 19th century Sicily, witnessing a crime and speaking about it was a death sentence. Silence was the only protection ordinary people had. By the end of the 19th century, the Mafia had infiltrated every level of Sicilian life: politics, agriculture, even the church. They were the government in practice, but Sicily eventually became too small. The great Italian migration was beginning. Millions of honest workers were leaving for America, chasing opportunity and a better life. But hidden among them, in the dark holds of ships, traveled the men of honor. They didn't carry much with them, but they carried the method. Here's the key thing to understand. The Mafia didn't see itself as criminal. In their own minds, they were restoring order where the state had failed. They replaced courts with revenge, contracts with threats, and law with fear. That illusion of legitimacy is what made them so dangerous. When they arrived in America, they didn't need to reinvent themselves. They adapted. Instead of lemon groves, there were docks. Instead of farms, there were labor unions. Instead of rural silence, there were crowded immigrant neighborhoods where fear spread faster than the police. The same rules applied. Control territory, control violence, control silence, and above all, leave no witnesses. What began as rural protection in Sicily was about to evolve into the most powerful criminal syndicate the modern world had ever seen. The seed planted in the dry soil of Palermo was ready to bloom on the cold asphalt of New York. But that journey, and how they conquered the so-called land of opportunity, is a story for the next dossier. If you want to follow the rise and fall of these empires, subscribe now. History here isn't told, it's investigated. Welcome to the family.